AnimTree is a script I created over 20 years ago in 2002. I sold licenses for it on my website, which I created. The website had a back end in Java and front end using lots of JavaScript, CSS. We didn't have any of the DOM, document object model functions like query selector, get elements by class name. We didn't have CSS animations. Nothing like this existed on the web in those days. It was novel. The way I implemented it was so that it would degrade gracefully. That means if the user's browser doesn't support the JavaScript, then the user will still be able to click on those links. All the menu items will be expanded. And the reason for that is the user still wants to be able to click around on the website and see how things work. And in order to make that happen, I had to implement it in a way that we could close the menu and show only the menu that we wanted while the page was loading. And that would happen where we'd have a call to open menu right after the script in the source code. So the browser would parse the HTML, it would get along, kind of come to the script element, not the script tag, the script element. The element has a start tag and an end tag. It's the script element. So you kids nowadays who think it's called a script tag, it's not. It's a script element. It has two tags, the start tag and the end tag. Okay, so get to the script element, parse that, and then it would hand that parsing off to the script engine, interpret the script, call the open menu function, which would then collapse the other menus that were not supposed to be open, unless they were supposed to be open based on the configuration properties of the script, which I would allow the users to configure. Granted, all of this is happening in 366 lines of code. There are configuration options where the user can allow for the script to have multiple menus open, or if you click on one menu, it collapses the other and then opens the one you want. Or you could have it so that it happens simultaneously, so that if you click on a menu header and you want it to close and open simultaneously, it'll close the other menu and open the menu that you're trying to activate at the same time. All of that's within the script in the 366 lines of code with a tree options object that could be user defined, or you could just download the one you want and it would be already pre-configured. You wouldn't even have to do anything with the JavaScript. I made it deliberately have a very simple programmatic interface so that people who didn't know JavaScript could use it. Also, I baked into there, and we'll get into how this algorithm works, but I also baked into that script security measures. So if you downloaded the script and you put it on your website and you thought you were going to get it free without buying a license, you get 30 days and then you're going to start getting some alert boxes that are going to pop up on certain users' browsers. Right? User goes there and 30 days they go back and, the cookie says the script is expired. Now that's a very dumb form of security. It's not really security because that can easily be edited by the person using the script. But I was counting on the fact that the people who are going to be doing that would not be savvy enough to go into the script and find out where those security measures were and delete them from the script. And that seemed to be fairly effective security for me. It worked. Right? Any security can be defeated in some form. And this very low security could be very easily defeated by people who didn't know JavaScript well at all. And I made it easy for these people to implement the script and a little bit harder for them to subvert the security measures, which again were baked into 366 lines of code plus some helper functions. So what happens when the page is loading? The page is loading, it parses all of this HTML, and then there's a call to the open menu. It'll open the menu that you want to be open, and then if you have allow multiple menus to be open, configured to be false, then it will close all of the others as the page is loading. But it will only do that if the browser in question supports that. And then for that, we had feature tests. And I also had a threshold where I would say, if the browser identifies as Netscape 4 or Opera 5, we're just going to skip this altogether. And that was a concession that I had to make. We're going to use some browser detection for this. I don't think it was the best strategy, but there were some very severe quirks in many of those older browsers, Opera 5 and Netscape 4, that it just wouldn't work. And I believe that when the script was written, that if the browser identified as Internet Explorer, but it was actually Opera, that it would actually work. So the script would work in Opera identifying as Internet Explorer, but it wouldn't work in Opera due to some quirks, if I remember correctly, but perhaps not. Again, it's over 20 years old. But I did spend quite a lot of time staying up many late nights trying to figure out how this works. So again, we're loading the page. We've got a call, we've got the menu source code there, we've got a script element, we've got a call to open menu. What happens when that menu is open? Well, it's going to first find the items to close. Well, if there aren't any items to close, it's going to look for every element in there that has class menu node, and it's going to open them up. Now, submenus have a label that will also have a button label, and those can also have menu label as well. So you can have 2 classes per element, and that actually worked back in those days. It still does work, of course. Many people didn't know about that. But these submenu items would also open up. Not the submenu items, but the label for the submenu would be displayed, because it was a menu node. So we would show the menu items, which have no children, and then we would show a menu node, which was a label, which would have an associated menu with it, and we wouldn't necessarily open up that submenu. So when we open up the top-level menu here, so we open up DragLib, and it shows that we have a submenu in there. And the way that we do this is that we first look for the items to close, and there aren't any yet. But once we've opened it one time, now we have items to close. We open the submenu, we've added these submenu items to the items to close. And now when we close this, we get all the items to close, we add those to our items to close, and now we have items to open. When we want to click it again, we have items to open is the reverse of the items to close. And so it opens them up in reverse order. And it does so by displaying each menu item as display block. So you can see if you do it if you look carefully, very slowly, what's happening here is each item is being displayed block. Display block, 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 block. We have like 10 things in there that get displayed block. That it happens so quickly in a fraction of a second that we're seeing frames, like maybe 10 frames in less than a second of display block, and it just appears to be smooth. So that's how I implemented this script back in 2002 to work in a very large number of browsers, and I published it on my website, which I created, sold lots of licenses, and I had to bake security into the script as well, all in 366 lines of code. Try to see if anybody can do that nowadays. Now what they do is they implement scripts that have React.js, which is orders of magnitude larger than this script alone. And then they try to get it to work in a handful of browsers. They'll test it out in Chrome, and then they'll complain about Edge. They'll complain about other browsers. They maybe test it in 3 or 4 browsers, which are very highly consistent with one another nowadays. Back in 2002, you think the browsers were that consistent? You had to find things that, okay, it doesn't work if you do it this way in some browsers, so we'll just avoid doing that problem that exacerbates that particular situation in certain browsers, and we'll do things a slightly different way so that we don't exacerbate that problem. And you won't even see that in the code unless there is a reason where we've had to do something kind of weird, and then we'll put in there, hey, we didn't do it the other way, even though it seems more intuitive, but I would just avoid that, and I would do it the way that seemed most intuitive, was the clearest way to explain the code so that I wouldn't get confused by it later on, and that didn't exacerbate browser disparity issues. There's AnimTree from 2002. Thanks for watching.